is so complex, isn't it? I am so blessed to be the daughter of a continent so diverse, so rich with promise, and yet so troubled. My main concern, however, is right here, my home, my Namibia. And so this episode is dedicated to the true heroes of this country, the resilient, the hard workers, the believers, and the do-gooders. Keep on keeping on. I spoke to social activist Monica Nambelela about the state of our continent and our country as she perceives it.
The state of Africa today, if you think in terms of Africa Day, the first African countries to obtain independence from colonialism was between 1958 and the last received independence from 1990. Africa, you know, from the look of things, it looks like it's a continent on the rise. Wherever you go, you find crane-filled skyliners, you find mansions, you find shopping malls. But sadly for Africa, the wealth is just in the hands of three people. Collectively, the gap between rich and poor has been growing at a rate that is disappointing. Democracy in Africa has been going backwards. If you look at the oil-rich countries and the wars, Boko Haram, Africa has not known prosperity ever since 1953. With all the development aid coming in, there is actually more money being shipped out of Africa through corruption, tax evasion, and the money is only in the hands of three families.
I truly believe that if politicians understood that we are the public and that they are the servants, we wouldn't have half the problems we have in this country. But I too have watched politicians become more and more inaccessible and bloated, from bellies to egos. Here's social activist and RDP member Monica Nambelela's take on it.
In Namibia, the education system needs to be redesigned because it has failed so many. So many children don't make it to grade 10. And the problem is the leaders have disconnected from the system that they are overseeing because they are sending their children to private schools, so they are not concerned. And as a result, the gap between knowledge and knowledge transfer is exclusively only in the hands of the elite. And that is worrisome. And with that, with education comes lack of education boils into poverty. Look at our crime rate. It boils into a lot of problems. But I would say the biggest challenge in Africa is kleptomania. Our leaders, every avenue of value creation, all the business opportunities are in their hands. And our people are really finding it hard to survive. So one would say, is it all in vain? Did we forget what we were fighting for? If, you know, in an independent Namibia, we still have a nation that is going backwards. Even to rent a ghetto will cost you $1,000. And the deeds of sale of most of, you know, the land property, it's in the hands of, again, the elite. Even if the Shack Dwellers Association is to say that people should be allowed to build houses on the land that the shacks are built on, the reality would be that most of the shacks belong to the elite and they are renting it out to the poorest people. I think the most important pillars, once people have electricity, industrialization begins and new business markets.
RDP member and social activist Monica Nambelela also laments Namibia's challenges on this Africa Day.
I do not understand why we are spending millions on the dead. For the past 15 years or so, we have been spending so much on the dead while the living are living without dignity. Look at Heroes Acre. How much money has to date gone into Heroes Acre? They have got 24 hours electricity. They live in dignity while they are dead, electricity and water. And then you are like, I mean, that money could be used to transform ghettos and townships into suburbs. You know, as a black person, I am sick and tired that dividing line is still very, very evident. Where we live in townships, they live in suburbs. We have inferior town planning. My appeal to the government, stop spending millions on the dead while the living live without dignity. The taxpayers are walking shoeless, and they have family members who are going to bed on hungry stomachs while we are spending so much. And I am against this new envisaged Kasinga monument, which is going to cost 600 million, I understand. What for? Can we not give the money to the living, transform our education system into a skilled-based education system, narrow the gap between have and have-nots?
Ooh, Shem, we got us some problems out here in Africa. There Mugabe is going to have to account about some irregularities in the sale of diamonds in his country. Zuma is flying economy class, and Namibians are finally starting to speak out. Check this out.
I think for Namibia to grow sustainably, we need to address our corruption, because the watchdogs are friends with the politicians, and corruption cases, they don't get, it's never made public knowledge. So much money is being lost through corruption. For instance, the Kora Music Award. How is it possible that someone got a check of 28 million and it was not signed off by Treasury? How does a check make it through without the approval of Carl Gustav Schlettwein? Are we a banana republic? Look at AVIT, look at Social Security. In terms of the people of Namibia don't get value from Social Security. Social Security should have functioned as a social insurance, whereby it narrows the gap again between poor and rich. Every Namibian should have a mandatory medical aid, whether they are working or not. The president and the cleaner or the person who sleeps in the street, they must meet up at Medicity. The standard must be the same. And Social Security should give incentives. I mean, the money is just piling up. It's not being used. It's not being used to address the inequality, be it the infrastructural inequality that now brings us back into housing. So the money is accumulating and being stolen. And AVIT, it took so many years. It took a state assassination. The person who would have helped us to understand the level of corruption, mysteriously, he was taken home to go collect a blanket. And Namibia's most famous whistleblower, apparently he shot himself. But I've never seen people, prisoners, being taken home to collect blankets. And the people responsible for it, they must be dealt with. Look at, we are being pushed to upgrade the new airport. I think the new airport upgrade is a conflict of interest, because close to the new airport there is a residential mansion, a rental village which belonged to a politically connected and his Chinese business partner. So the rental village close to the airport, we taxpayers, we will be paying for the infrastructure, for the road of the business deal between a politician and a Chinese business owner. And I am very, very worried about the fact that our leaders have offshore accounts. So much money is being stolen, almost 80% of Africa's money that belongs to the people, money that was stolen from public funds. You can trace it down. It's in Switzerland. And so our politicians have stolen enough that should anything, even, it's always like when people are unhappy, a social unrest can lead into a civil war. They are always the first to board out, to fly out. And then the poor people are facing each other. We need to address it. Namibia is not a poor country. Namibia is poorly managed. If we calculate and add up all the money that have been stolen, we add it up. Namibia should have been the small Switzerland of Africa with its ideal population. There is no reason one Namibian kneeling down in the riverbed to do his number 1 and number 2. It's one too many.
Up next on Cecilia Says.
As we know that it's an African Day, I am so happy that we came with the idea of keeping our country very clean. So I am so proud of that idea because that's the way the African people had to be.
So almost 2 decades ago, certain businesses of connected people received funds from the GIPF to be invested in a number of business ventures. Their chickens have come home to roost on some because they're certainly on their deathbeds after the citizens have waited this long for answers on how public funds were unscrupulously squandered and remain unaccounted for. Check this out.
The squandering of GIPF funds has been coming on for a long time now. It's another antiquated story. It's a time during which Mr. Primus Hango was the managing director. In fact, managing director is the wrong word, or CEO is the wrong word to use. Principal is an accurate description of a head of a pension fund in terms of the Pension Fund Act of 1956. During his era, there was a board of directors, board of trustees at the Government Institutions Pension Fund. And nothing that happened without the authority of the Government Institutions Pension Fund Board of Trustees. So, because of the due diligence principle and their fiduciary obligations towards members of the pension fund, the buck stops with the CEO of the GIPF and its board of directors. 4,600 million Namibian dollars, not 650 million as they would want the public to believe. 4,600 million Namibian dollars left the coffers of GIPF and were diverted to individual close corporations and PTYs, companies registered with the Registrar of Close Corporations and Companies. If a company is registered, it has a spoor. You can trace whom it belongs to. The company has a bank account. There are signatories to that bank account. Who are these people? Who are in charge of these monies that were allegedly invested with these companies? Nothing is happening. It's a story that is coming for almost the past 2 decades now. And the Anti-Corruption Commission is silent about it. Some of the culprits are roaming the streets, driving Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs like the entrepreneurs of Namibia. But they know absolutely zilch about investment. All they know is to steal pensioners. You know what a pensioner is? The GIPF caters for the needs of the physically infirm, for widows and orphans, right? Now people who steal from these people are roaming the streets and driving Mercedes-Benzes and giving the picture of I am the success story of Namibia. Petty criminals, thieves, and we respect them and say we look up to them because of the cars that they are driving and the mansions they live in. They don't steal from ordinary people that can defend themselves. They steal from the physically infirm, widowers and widows, orphans. And what does Namibia do? We clap hands and we look up to them. They are our heroes. We must change that mindset, and we must disrespect them. We must learn to insult them for what they are worth. They are the scum of this world, and we clap hands for them. We respect them. Why? Because we are afraid what will happen to Kandara will happen to us.
Corruption on this continent runs deep, and I've always wondered why we vote coffin dodgers into power, and whether they have a WhatsApp group in which they share ideas on how to pilfer their nation's resources. The bottom line is that some of us are not going to allow ourselves to be part of a legacy of eye-blindedness in the face of corruption.
The Anti-Corruption Commission is headed by Mr. Paulus Noah. Why? Not because Mr. Paulus Noah is a competent policeman and interest bearer of public interest. No. Because he's there as one of the principals entrusted with one duty only, and that is to make sure that the main criminals, those who stole from the GIPF, remain free, amongst others. Look, you know money was stolen. You know who stole the money. We are living in an era where money is transferred by way of electronic fund transfers, EFTs. It's not back then in the 17s where you say, no, I gave the cash to Mr. A and Mr. B, send it to so-and-so. No, there's an electronic spoor. Footprints are left of where this money went. Are you telling me in this day and age that Mr. Paulus Noah and his entire office mechanism is unable to say who the recipients of these monies were? 4,600 million. Imagine what that money would mean to Namibia during this current economic state. If, for example, the GIPF still had it in its custody and that money was advanced to the government of Namibia just to fund some of its projects. Can you imagine what it would have meant for the economy of Namibia? And now we have a situation where graduate dentists, graduate architects, students who qualified in specific fields are sitting at home desperately looking up to their pensioner mums and dads to be able to move, just to be able to live. Welcome to Namibia. Every rot, every corruption, right, starts and ends with the leadership that we have in this country. The buck stops with them. If there is political will to remedy the rot that we have in this country, things will start to change. Until when shall we remain admirers of an independent judiciary in the Republic of South Africa, if apparently we have a vibrant, a beautiful constitution on paper? Until when shall we wait for justice to happen in this country, if our courts are manned by individual functionaries, hand-picked to head the judiciary? If our justice delivery system has got select goalkeepers, like at the ACC, the PG's office, to make sure that only some members of society are prosecuted. Why is it that the Prosecutor General's son, who committed rape some time ago, is still scot-free? And you Namibians say, it's fine, it's okay. Welcome to Namibia.
Social activist Monica Nambelela also shares her views on the GIPF scandal.
It's only the small fish that are being caught. The big, the ones that drove and planned. I mean, if we are to go into detail, we would find many politicians implicated in the GIPF fraud. It's the same with SME. It's, overlapping. They're only targeting the small guys. But if we were maybe to target the big ones, maybe Namibia would not have a leadership anymore. It would implicate every other second person in parliament. It would implicate former presidents. And I think it's scandalous. And I also need it, and it's scandalous. The corruption is continuing. For me, it's nothing else but corruption. What GIPF did recently, GIPF committed the money of the workers to buy shares in MTC. How are the workers, how do you commit the money of the workers to something that holds no value, that is not creating value for workers? And Namibian workers should stand united. There is strength in unity, and I think we should question how our money is being used to buy shares in MTC. Do we eat MTC shares? Do we sleep in rent coming from those MTC shares? Our politicians are playing what is called a game of chess, corrupt chess. They are playing the cards in such a way that for every crime, they have appointed someone who will not release the information. And the managers, the MDs are strategic, not working for the country, but working to cover up the traces of corruption involving politicians. And what we need for democracy to be meaningful, we need a strengthened civil society. We need people that speak out. We need trade unions. And in Namibia, it looks like, sadly, we woke up in a one-party state. We are backwards. It's not what we envisaged 28 years ago. We voted with electronic voting machines with no paper trail. Hello. So I'm questioning where my country is going to.
I reached out to the GIPF for answers. Check this out. We indicated that this matter remains under the law enforcement agencies and is therefore sub judice, which restricts the fund from making comments on this matter. On the question of the CEO position, it was certainly advertised. In fact, there were repeated advertisements in the media. Yes, the board takes its responsibility seriously, as demonstrated by the financial health of the fund. You can have a look at our audited financial reports and the valuation report. Let's see what's inspired Dudley this week. In commemoration of Africa Day, Zimbabwean artist Slick Artie is here to teach us about African instruments. Check this out.
Hello, this is Slick Artie, and you're watching It's a Rap. I'm here to talk about Mbira, this instrument, my first love. This is originally from Zimbabwe and Zambia as well. It's actually on the Zambezi region. They call it the finger thumb keyboard. These were the first instruments to be made before the keyboard was even invented. And then they came the kalimba, and then I guess you know what happened after that. So I love this instrument because it's ours. It's African. It's an African instrument, and all the time I play this, it makes me happy and proud to be African. This is called the nyunga nyunga, or college mbira. It has 15 keys. This is actually the one instrument that if you want to learn, there's a beginner mbira, but I actually prefer playing it. I love the sound. It's rich, it's African, and it's mature. And I taught myself how to play this from watching African artists such as Thomas Mapfumo and Chiwoniso Maraire. And the song that I will be playing for you today before I leave, it's actually Chiwoniso Maraire's song. It's called Ivainesu, and I hope you will enjoy the rich sound of African instruments and African sound on Africa Day. Oh, mamwe bakara nenzara, vamwe vachifara nekuguta, kumwe vaparara nemvura, kumwe vachipera nezuva, kutungamira nekutungamirwa, tiri vana venyu, komukutaura nemukurotswa, tiri vana venyu, komukutaura nekuhomoka, tiri vana venyu, tiri vana venyu. Ivanesu Mwari Baba, Mwari Baba, Ivanesu, Ivanesu Mwari Baba, Mwari Baba, Ivanesu, Ivanesu Mwari Baba, Mwari Baba, Ivanesu, Ivanesu Mwari Baba, Mwari Baba, Ivanesu. Lord God, be with your children. Oh, be with your children, oh God. Oh, Lord God, be with your children. Oh, be with your children, oh God. Oh, vamwe vakarara nenzara, vamwe vachifara nekuguta, kumwe vaparara nemvura, kumwe vachipera nezuva, kutungamira nekutungamirwa, tiri vana venyu, tiri vana venyu. Stay woke.
Thank you for watching. Please follow It's a Wrap with Erica Gebhardt on Facebook and Insta and subscribe to our YouTube page. Stay woke, Namibia.